Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by The Draft Professor. The Draft Professor is a group of podcasters bringing you daily draft podcasts and is home to the only dynamic mock draft simulator which allows fans to mock draft against other fans. The Draft Professor Simulator features a first-round challenge, 5 unique one-round drafts. The Draft Professor Simulator features a second-round challenge, 10 unique 2-round drafts. All mock drafts are always picking against the fans and draft analysts which use the simulator. Every mock, every pick, every time. The Draft Professor also features ranked players functionality, where you can rank your favorite players at every position. Optionally, you can add tiers to your rankings to show what round you have the players graded in. The Draft Professor also features Draft a Team functionality, which allows users to snake draft a team of 22 players to demonstrate your my guys, compare player strengths, and discuss draft prospects in a way no other mock draft simulator can. Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. This episode will begin shortly. Well, welcome to our second podcast of the night. How you doing, Josh?
Good. Glad to be back on another Monday. Last week we went over the offensive side of the ball. This week we're going over the defensive side of the ball. Guys I have in my top 100. It's a really deep edge class. A lot of intriguing names in the linebacker safety. Compared to last year's offensive just mastery of a top round for an NFL draft, it's the exact opposite this year with the defensive side of the ball. So it'll be a really good episode all around.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and jump into it? So we'll be doing safeties, then corners, and then we'll close out with the edges and the defensive linemen. But why don't you talk about your safeties here for a little bit, Josh?
Yeah, we'll keep everything brief and to the point today. Obviously, this year with the NFL draft, the two safeties that are going to be talked about in the first round are Malachi Starks and Nick Emmanwori. Both are really, really strong prospects. Both are in my top 15, and it's more of a give or take what you choose, what you like at that position. Malachi Starks is absolutely a better range safety, hanging him in a deep half of a zone. But Nick Emmanwori has all the potential in the world. You can pick or choose those 1 and 2, but those are the 1 and 2s in this draft class. Then you got the 3 guys I really like in the second round. Xavier Watts, the ultra-productive safety out of Notre Dame. Doesn't have the athletic upside, but will absolutely be a solid football player for his whole entire career. Andrew Mukuba is an athletic, rangy safety that can make big impact plays on the ball. A little bit of a ball hawk that has more to develop into. And then Kevin Winston, really good all-around safety, dealt with injuries this year. All 3 guys will be starters, in my opinion, in the NFL level. I see them slotted in the second round, though. And then we got the 3 guys that I think could really make it into the top 100 and get drafted, solidify themselves in the third round. Sebastian Castro is a safety / nickel, in my opinion. I like him best in the slot position, but fundamentally sound all around, high football IQ, can make plays and run support, and he won't be a liability in coverage. So that absolutely plays on Sundays for me. Malachi Moore was a leader on that Alabama defense. While he might not have the coverage prowess as the rest of these guys, he absolutely makes big impact plays. He's a hard hitter. He loves the toughness, and he loves to be a leader on that defense. And Jonas Sanker was a guy I was really high on throughout the year, just made big plays time after time again. Probably the guy that has the most to work on out of these 8 safeties, but I do love the toughness he brings, his clutchness, his big game moments. I think he can crack the top 100, absolutely.
Yep. And a couple of observations. So as Josh kind of goes through his board, I'll give some data. So Josh has 8 safeties in his top 100. The average for an NFL draft is 7 safeties in the first 3 rounds. And I'm using Draft Tech to get that data. So if you look at the colors, you have a first-round grade on Emmanwori and Starks, correct? Mm-hmm. So if 2 safeties go in round 1, that's already more than the average, because the average is actually less than 1 safety in round 1. So right there. And then the average is 3 in round 2. And if you look, Josh has Watts, Mukuba, and Winston graded in round 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So To me, that is the indication of it's a deeper safety class than anybody is talking about.
No, absolutely. And there's about 5 safeties that I have right in that 4th round range as well. So there's absolutely abundance of safeties that will be picked in the middle rounds 3 through 5, and a lot of them are going to hit in my opinion.
Yep. And you want to tell everybody about your corners?
Yeah, so this corner class is really intriguing. Good corner class all in all. We all know the 1s and 2s. Travis Hunter, we don't need to go over. Top 2 player in this draft class, whether you have him 1 or 2, it doesn't matter to me. Absolute generational prospect, in my opinion. Will Johnson was regarded as a top prospect coming into the year, dealt with injury throughout this whole entire season. But if you go back to his 2023 tape, the way he was able to lock down in those playoff runs, really be an anchor for that Jim Harbaugh defense. I think it translates over. I think he has a little bit more to work on than people would like to admit to realize. I still have a top 5 grade on him, but it's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back from the injury and how tight coverage he can actually play on his receivers. But big play maker, can be a CB1 one day in the NFL. Jahade Barron, even though he might not have the athletic upside as most of these guys will talk about, was a Jim Thorpe winner. And the one thing he brings over everybody else is his versatility. You can line him up as a slot defender, where I think he's best at. You can line him up as an outside corner. You can line him up as an in-the-box safety. You can line him up as a outside-the-box safety. Truly can play all 4 positions at a starter level in the NFL level. So that holds some value to me, even though he doesn't have the athletic upside. Ben Morrison, I still keep there in the 1st round. I know there's a lot of discussion where he should be there or not. I just go back to how fundamentally sound he was in man coverage last year. Yes, the injury is concerning, and no, he's not the most fluent athlete in the world, but a guy with good size and has been proven to play lockdown CB1 still holds a late 1st round grade for me. Azariah Thomas, Trey Amos, and Trevon Revel are 3 guys I really love in this draft class. All guys are in my top 50, and you can interchange all 3 of them if you want to. They just missed my top 32. You got real starter potential in all 3 of these guys. I think Trey Amos would be the most starter ready right away. Azariah Thomas is a good mixture of both Revel and Tremos, mixing athletic ability and already proven production. And Trevon Revel has the most upside in this draft class with his arm length and his speed. Azariah Thomas isn't far behind him in that category, but just goes to show you the quality of these cornerbacks that I have 1st to 2nd round grades on. And Darian Porter's right behind there for me as well. A guy that's absolutely going to play a crucial part on special teams right away, but he could start at corner. Year 1, in my opinion, has the athletic range. He can make plays on the ball with ease, easy athlete with length. More development needed on his side, but the most upside out of any of these corners that will be left on the board. And then I really do see a run of Noel Williams, Zy Alexander, Quincy Riley, and Dorian Strong go somewhere in the top 100 picks. You can make an argument that Noel Williams could fall out of there, but I really do like all 4 of these prospects. Zy Alexander is fundamentally sound all around, both in man and zone. He's really smart as well. Quincy Riley and Dorian Strong had really strong Senior Bowl weeks. You go back to their tape, they absolutely bring you value in the NFL, whether it's as a rotational piece, and they can definitely serve as a starter as well. I don't know if the upside's completely there with both of them. They don't have the best frame, but guys, I would absolutely love in the middle rounds. And Noel Williams, biggest variance, but I love his big play instincts. I love how tough he is in man coverage, press man. He'll get called for more holdings in the NFL, and he'll take more risks, but a guy that I absolutely love in the locker room.
Okay, so a couple of observations. So Josh has 12 corners in his top 100. The average NFL draft has 12. Somewhere between 11 and 12 is the average. So if Josh is 100% correct, it's an average draft. I actually think if we were to compare Josh's corner board to other draft professors, I think Josh has more corners in his top 100 by 1 or 2 than like Owen or Newt had. But I'd have to go back and verify. And like Bill, thank you for that in the chat. So we're hovering right around an average corner class.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, what makes this below average is Johnson and Revel and Morrison are injured.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't have Maxwell Hairston, and I believe he's battling some injuries too, correct?
Yeah, he came back for the Senior Bowl. Good sign to see. Didn't play most of the season for Kentucky. but also a guy in that fringe top 100 that just missed out as well.
Yep. Okay, and then my favorite position is always linebackers. So tell me about 8 linebackers in the top 100.
It's been a pleasure starting this off with running backs and linebackers with you every Monday because I really got to appreciate this linebacker class. And these top 8 guys don't do it justice. The middle guys that are going to go in round 4, round 5, some even trickle into round 6. There's really good linebackers in this draft class. Just because they don't fit the athletic mold doesn't mean they won't stick on a 53-man roster and absolutely serve a role on an NFL team. But we'll start with the 1 and 2 discussion, Jihaad Campbell and Jalen Walker. For preference, these are my number 6 and number 7 players on my board. So you could put either one or 2. It does not matter to me. I flip-flop every other week. To me, Jihaad Campbell has a tiny bit more athletic upside. I think Jalen Walker is an absolute force. If you played him right now in the NFL, he would be a difference maker on an NFL defense. And I think Jihaad Campbell has a little bit more to clean up, but I think he has more potential in coverage, especially in a drop zone coverage. And I think he has the higher ceiling, but you can go back and forth. My number 6 and my number 7 players. Demetrius Knight was a late watch for me, but in a linebacker class that has lower type body types, more will linebackers, Sam linebackers, not traditional size for a modern day linebacker, Demetrius Knight absolutely fills that role. You can see it in his pursuit, how he plays the run. He has the speed as well, athletic ability to hold down in both man and zone coverage. So a late riser, but a guy that I believe can start in the NFL. Jack Kaiser and Carson Schlesinger are right there neck and neck with me as well. Both guys that I absolutely love. Just because they're not the biggest body type doesn't mean that they won't start in the NFL, in my opinion. Carson Schlesinger has zone coverage upside for days, fluid athlete, long arms, can make impact plays with his finesse in the run game. And Jack Kaiser was the staple of that Notre Dame defense, and we had podcasts about him before, talking about him with Jake and everybody else, a guy that I've been really high on. I think he's the best tackler in this draft class. Reminds me of Drew Tranquill a little bit, one of those type of linebackers. And then Chris Paul, Kobe King, and Danny Stutman are the guys that fit inside my top 100. There's more guys that you can interchange: Barrett Carter, Shmuel Munden, Cody Simon, Jeffrey Baza. So what I mean, this is a really deep middle linebacker class. It really is in that aspect. Chris Paul Jr., a little bit undersized, but great zone coverage instincts, high football IQ, good run defender as well. Kobe King, saw a post earlier saying he's one of the best block shedders in this draft class. That absolutely holds true. His arm length and his overall size is massive. Will absolutely play a role on early down. See if he can develop his coverage skills a little bit better. And Danny Stutzman can get lost at times, but a guy that's been proven in big moments, can make plays and run support at the minimum at the next level, and has shown some flash in coverage as well. So those guys round out top 100 for me, but you can really interchange number 6 through number 13 and can't make a compelling argument to say that doesn't make sense.
Cool. And okay, probably the deepest position in this entire draft is edge, because there's already I'm already looking at the list and there's 5 guys. I'm like, where are they?
Yeah.
So, but tell us about your top 20 edges and Braden Swinson with the first round grade.
Right. One of the few guys you will see with that, but we'll go over him in a little bit. We'll start from the bottom top because this is a really deep edge rusher class, not just in rounds 3 and rounds 4. You talk about the top 64 talent, this edge rusher class to me has 15 guys that you can make an argument for to go in that top 64. So we'll start it off at the bottom. Princely Umanmielen falls in at number 20 for me. Everybody's really high on Princely Umanmielen, and it's completely understood. He has the prototypical mold, height, weight, speed, can really bend the edge, can get around and make plays as a straight vertical pass rusher. To me, I just don't see the consistency in run defense for a guy his size. He gets washed down way too often. I don't see the effort to get into power more often. I think he's a one-tools rusher at the NFL. Still serves a purpose. He'll be a third-down monster in the next level with his size, absolutely. I just don't see a three-down player in Princely, so that's why he's lower for me. Only reason I have Jared Ivey a little bit higher is the position versatility he brings you on the field. You can line him up as a traditional defensive end, line him up on the interior when you run 5 men at the line of scrimmage. Can be effective in both ways on the pass as well. Won't be the best athlete in the world, but absolutely had great production this year for Ole Miss, and it translates, in my opinion, to the next level. Antoine Powell-Ryland also fits in that mold. More undersized, would be a defensive designated pass rusher, in my opinion, at the next level. But when you talk about just tail of the tape, this guy has probably a top 10 tape in this draft class. Don't look at the measurables. Absolutely gets after it in multiple ways as a pass rusher. Really controlled in his rushes as well. Footwork and timing with his hands match up amazingly. Can serve as a run defender. I just don't think his size will hold up at the next level. But a guy that I'm personally high on, Femi Oladejo. I struggle with that a little bit, but Senior Bowl absolutely had an amazing showcase there. A guy that has a lot of upside to him, needs a lot of development, kind of like a Jalix Hunt of last year, but athletic ability through the roof, and you love to see the motor on this guy. This motor is going to get him where he's going to get to at the next level. And Barryn Sorrell was voted the best defensive lineman at the Senior Bowl, if I do not believe so. A guy that won't be spectacular at anything, but really good at almost everything. Solid in the run game, solid as a pass rusher, really strong lower half, can win with power, feisty with leverage, just a really well-rounded edge rusher. Won't have the upside of all these guys we'll talk about, but I think he could be a starter at the next level. No question in my mind. Then you move on to the guys that I could see going in the third round, maybe fourth round, but I could see a world where they go in the second round. Absolutely. Josiah Stewart, the edge rusher from Michigan, one of the few guys I saw on tape get after Ariante Ursary, and that's saying something for a guy that's under the 6'1" threshold, and he's more 240 pounds. This elite speed rusher, though. If you're looking for a speed rusher in this draft class, it's Josiah Stewart, and he shows the willingness, high football IQ to be a participant in run defense, even if his size doesn't hold up. Kyle Kennard is kind of on that Barryn Sorrell role. Had more production this year. I think his arm length and his use of hands are better than Sorrell's. He can win with more finesse as a pass rusher. Won't have the athletic upside like these other guys, but a starter level in my opinion. And then Jordan Burch is right above him. 300-pound athletic monster that loves to win with finesse, can win with power as well. Really athletic. If you turn on his special teams tape, they run fakes with him, and he's taking balls 30 yards on a handoff on 4th and 10 on a punt, but absolutely is really good in run and pass. And then David Walker has been my favorite edge rusher, like small school edge rusher to watch. Under that 6'2" threshold, 250 pounds, 260 pounds, well built. But his tape is one of the best in this draft class. If you haven't got the chance to watch the tape, it's really good. And then he performed at the Senior Bowl too, so it didn't no level of competition questions for me there. Donovan Ezeraku, Landon Jackson, Jack Sawyer, and JT Tuimaiola are guys you can start talking about being first-round caliber prospects, but I see them more definitely going in the top 64 more than I'm pushing them in the first round. Start with Donovan Ezeraku. Even though he doesn't have the strength prowess to win with power often, so much production from him this year, even stays with plays and run defense, even if he won't hold up as a straight contain the edge guy, can make the play in the second level, can chase down backside runs, but explosive as heck. 17 plus sacks this year, if I do believe so. A guy that you play him on Sundays. Landon Jackson has the best, you can say, besides Shemar Stewart, height, length, weight profile in this draft class, and has shown the ability to win with technician, win with power, and he'll be at minimum a really good run defender in the NFL. That gives you a floor of where you'll be drafted. I think Landon Jackson could be a top 10 edge rusher, be drafted in this draft class, and I see a world where he goes in the first round. And then you got the two Ohio State rushers where you will always question one thing in their game, whether it's as good as these other guys in this draft class, but they're just two really good damn football players. And will they go down or up this list during this process? We'll see. Not the most upside potential guys compared to the rest of these guys, but they're pretty damn good football players. If you didn't see that in the playoff run, I don't know what to tell you. Then you get into the 7 guys that I really do think will be drafted in the first round. With the exception of Braden Swinson, consensus isn't there on him. I hope the NFL is there on him. But we'll start it off with Shemar Stewart, a guy that has very high variance in this draft class when you talk to the media and people who study this draft class. Arm length, height, weight, just athletic ability for days, has the alignment versatility, can line up multiple places on the defensive line. He has good get-off for his size. My questions come for him whether he continues his momentum on the get-off, and if he has more of a pass rush plan going forward. His power rushes are awesome. He'll be able to contain the edge. He'll be able to take on double teams at the line of scrimmage. At minimum, this guy is a really good run defender in the NFL. His production is always a question. I don't hold too much stock into that. even though it knocks him down a little bit for me. But a guy at minimum, he'll be a really good run defender in the NFL, even if he doesn't develop as a pass rusher. His teammate comes just above him at number 6, a guy that I had as my edge one coming into the year. I think there's a little bit of weight issues with Nick Swarton. That's been obvious. The production wasn't there like it was versus when he was at Purdue. But a guy that's still really young and he's got his best footballs ahead of him. We saw the potential last year when he was at Purdue, when being able to win with power, be impactful in the run game, especially on third and go scenarios. Wins with power, wins with finesse, has a nasty spin move for his size. If you get him at the right weight, get him comfortable in his body again instead of trying to bulk him up too much like they did at Texas A&M, you could get that edge one we were talking about with Nick Swarton again. So a guy I know will go in the first round. If he doesn't, he's going in like the first 5 picks of the second round, and somebody's trading up for him if they don't want to take him. Braden Swinson has always been my guy in this draft class, a guy that really the media hasn't talked a lot about until just like a week ago. But if you watch any of LSU's games this year, you know this guy was impactful both in run and pass, but he was clutch as hell too. You can be really good in both run defense and as a pass rusher, but when it's 4th and 1 and you got to make a stop to get the turnover in an early game scenario, Braden Swinson's got to do it. If it's a 3rd and long scenario and he has to win, if his first pass rush plan doesn't go to fruition, he still stays on a high motor and he makes a play on the quarterback. This guy has motor for days. He wins with multiple ways as a pass rusher with finesse, power. His speed to power is really good as well. And I think he's a really good run defender at the NFL level. Will he have the strength to hold on to contain the edge? Yes, but it won't be as overbearing as most of the others guys. His power is limited, but I see a really damn good football player, and I see a starter at worst at the NFL and a guy that I think can make the Pro Bowl one day. And then we got the top 4 guys who have been bounced around overall this year: Mike Green, James Pierce, Mykel Williams, Abdul Carter. We'll get over Abdul Carter first. Either 1 or 2 in this draft class. I don't care where you have him. He's a generational prospect. Him and Hunter, you can consider Genty as well. Those are the 3 guys that are the generational guys in this draft class. But Abdul Carter is absolutely warranted. Elite and a bunch of metrics that you grade on. Don't have to go too much deep into that. I think Mykel Williams is starting to become a little bit underappreciated in this draft class. I know he's had the lack of production. Same thing as Shamar Stewart. He's also dealt with nagging injury, but his arm length is no joke. The way he was able to impact the game as a freshman is no joke. He continued that consistency on year after year as he learned more pass rush tools and he started to become more comfortable in his own body. And as a leader on that Georgia defense, really good run defender at worst in the next level. If you've noticed in this top 10 of these edge rushers, if they don't develop into the pass rushers they're going to be, or they have the potential to be, they're still going to bring you value as a run defender no matter what at the next level. They're not going to lack in that department. But Mykel Williams, I think his arm length and his overall upside is too good to pass up comparing to the James Pierce and the Mike Greens of the world. Mike Green, absolutely awesome football player. We saw him at the Senior Bowl, was probably the best player besides Gray Zabel at the Senior Bowl. Just one with easy power, super young, super raw, super athletic, and could be an impact player right away. And James Pierce, there's been a lot of questions with him as well, but the consistency on his tape and his ability to get able to improve every year on the things he's needed to do with his pass rush plan, developing more of that, just not winning based off of traits. I think he can be a really good drop back cover edge as well in those disguise coverages, which is something that he has on top of everybody else in this draft class. Wins with speed, obviously, has the athletic tools out of this world. We can go over these guys for days, but these 20 edge rushers really do deserve to be mentioned in the top 100 of this draft class.
So, like, I'm flashing back to last year, and I think last year it was like 4 edges in round 1 and 2 more in round 2, I think. And this year we're already talking about at least 6 or 7 in round 1. It's
like last year I was claiming I was like trying my hardest to manifest Mohamed Kamara getting drafted in the top 100 because I knew after those 7 edge rushers, like the drop off from that point on was going to be very steep. So even like a guy like Mo Kamara who didn't produce this year, he's the guy being talked about as the edge 7 of that draft class, edge 9 of that draft class, getting up in those conversations. You won't see, maybe besides David Walker, any of those small school guys come up into that conversation this year just because of the abundance of talent that we have on the board.
Yep. And where is Princely on your big board?
Let me pull up the big board right now. Let's move this going over to late day 2, early day 3. He is 113. So he's 13 spots away. He's in that threshold of could be in the top 100. But guys, I wanted to include for the video because even though I'm lower on Princely, I know he's going day 2, and I can't be mad at it because of the tools and what he'll bring to an NFL defense right away.
Yeah, and the reason why I was asking is just there's probably 10 more edges that we could talk about after Princely that could be eventual NFL starters that are taken in rounds 4 and 5. I'm thinking like Rucker, Fadil Diggs out of Syracuse.
Yep.
And Russell was posting. Was it Ponder?
Yep, Elijah Ponder had a really good all-star showcase. Ashton Gillette from Louisville as well. Tyler Barron, Tyler Beatty. Yeah, there's absolutely an abundance of edges in this class.
Yeah. So if your team needs an edge, it can draft 2, and there's still going to be more edges to share with the rest of us.
I'll be intrigued to see who drafts 2 edges. Who's the team that decides to go after and double dips on this class twice? Because this is the draft class to do it. You get quality talent all around.
Yep. Definitely. I could think of maybe your Ravens and my Bills. There's 2 of those teams that could double dip, right?
Mm-hmm. And
my understanding is I heard somebody say that the Ravens don't like extending their edges. They just like drafting them and then replacing them.
Yeah, that's why we have guys like David Ojabo in the wings. Odafe Owe turned into that. The reason we've been able to survive off that because Kyle Van Noy turned back into the fountain of youth for a good 5 years. It's been pretty cool to have. But, yeah, that's their philosophy.
Okay, and the last defensive positional group, and we definitely saved the best for last. So tell us about these 11 defensive tackles.
Before we get into the 11, I'll just shout out guys that I really do like in this class, but just missed it. Josh Farmer, Howard Cross, Ormond Norman Lott, CJ West, Jamari Caldwell, Jordan Phillips, Riley Mills, Savion Jones. Those are guys that rounds 3 through rounds 5, teams are going to go after because they're really good defensive line prospects. You can nitpick just because some are stronger in other categories than other, but those guys absolutely deserve a shout out on this list as well. But at number 11, it's a little bit controversial. It's Deone Walker, the freak monster athlete from Kentucky. We saw him live in person at the Senior Bowl. He's just different compared to everybody else. His size profile is ridiculous. 6'7", 350, a little bit on the leaner side for his size, which is very weird to see. Natural high center of gravity issues. His leverage issues are always going to be there in the NFL. I think he also has a little bit of stamina concerns. Played a lot of snaps for Kentucky, but I think he'll be most effective when you get him rotational snaps and letting him be fresh on those pass rush scenarios. Really unique, can line up truly as a wide 9 at times for somebody that's 355 pounds. Even though that's not going to be what he does in the NFL, just to have that in the toolbox, absolutely valuable to have for defensive coordinators that like to manipulate their defensive linemen. Absolutely has the strength prowess for days. He'll be a really good run defender, in my opinion, especially if you keep him fresh. But if you get him coached into those bad habits that he needs to get coached out of, you truly have a rare talent on your hands at defensive lineman. So that being defensive lineman 11, it's a pretty good defensive lineman class. Shamar Stewart is right in that conversation as well, a guy that has all the athletic upside in the world. Not really has put it together truly to his full potential. He shows flashes here and there of his get off, his bend, his power in pass rush scenarios. Has shown to be a quality run defender as well. But a guy I think he has more to develop on, and I think he has more in the gas to give as well. I don't think we've seen the best of Shamar Turner yet, and that's really exciting for an NFL general manager. Aeneas Peebles is the undersized darling in this defensive line class. When you talk about the end of round 2 to even, I don't see him falling outside the top 100. He's like my 92nd prospect, but absolutely explosive Senior Bowl, and the tape absolutely shows that as well. Explosives off the line of scrimmage. Pass rushing production for days, can win with finesse, really loves to win with power, likes to win at the leverage battle. He loves to win at the leverage battle. And even though he's undersized, he'll make instant impact plays, especially on early downs, being able to block, shed, and get into the backfield quickly for a guy his size. TJ Sanders also falls into that role, a little bit more skinnier, a little bit more of a speed rusher. Guy, you can line him up on the edge as well if you needed to. Really comfortable rushing with his burst and get off and his bend as an interior defensive lineman. I think he has more strength on his mass, and I think he'll be able to hold up double teams better. But as a true freak pass rusher, I think TJ Sanders is the most far along as of now. And then you get into the top 7 guys where I don't think any of these guys fall out of the second round. If Darius Alexander, if Alfred Collins falls out of the second round by any means, they're going before the top 75 picks. I full-heartedly believe that. You can pick or choose either one or two. Alfred Collins is probably, if not one of the best run defenders in this draft class, up with Tyleik Williams for the interior defensive line position. And Darius Alexander is no slouch in run defense at all, but he brings you a little bit more upside as a pass rusher. Really smart football. Both of these guys are really smart on the interior defensive line. If they're not the most sought after, highest graded prospects in the world, there's a lot of upside to like in both of these guys. We've seen Alfred Collins get mocked to the Bills up in the first round. And even though that's a guy that sits in my top 64, it absolutely makes sense for them because he's that good of a run defender. Tyleik Williams also fits in that mold. I think he wins with his use of hands are so good to watch, especially if you're watching the All-22 film or you're just going to watch the TV copy. His use of hands, his being able to be so nimble at his size. My friends joke around. We like to say he's like a little bit like Kung Fu Panda, the way he's able to block shed with his use of hands. That's exactly who Tyleik Williams reminds me of. A guy I was bullishly high on. I lowered him down a little bit for more guys that have potential. But as a run defender, I love everything Tyleik Williams brings you with that floor level. Kenneth Grant is going to be the most high variance prospect in this defensive line class. I think after he explodes, whether it's tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever the defensive linemen perform at the Senior Bowl, I don't know if he is or not. He didn't do it at the Shrine. But if he did perform at the Combine, everybody would hop on the Kenneth Grant train, say he's a top 10 pick. Absolute potential out of this world. Probably the most potential out of anybody. That's saying a lot because he played alongside the number 1 defensive lineman that we'll be talking about. But potential through the roof, size, his ability to chase down runners, his pass rush finesse potential, his ability to take on double teams right now. There's not a leverage issue with Kenneth Grant. Really exciting guy. And it'll be intriguing to see how high he goes, even though he's outside my top 32. And then Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan, and Mason Graham are 3 interior defensive linemen that I think could be plus starters right away in the NFL. Walter Nolan's going to have character concerns, quote unquote, but his motor, his get off, his age, everything you like in that production profile from both a run defense standpoint and a pass rushing standpoint. Kind of not as funky of a pass rusher as Byron Murphy last year, but really comparable in a guy that was young, was able to win the leverage battle with ease, and really, really strong get off. And he's powerful as heck too. So he falls into my number 2. He's in my top 16 prospects. Derek Harmon's in my top 25. He sits, I think, 20th, if I do believe. But the most polished pass rusher up there with Mason Graham for this interior defensive lineman class, and really has taken leaps and bounds as a run defender this year. That's what pushed him over the top for me for his first round grade. And Mason Graham's been an obvious top 5 player for anybody who's watched the last year of college football. Some people are going to question how much he can win with power. I don't care. His production from both a run and pass standpoint, his toughness, his football IQ, his being able to shine in big games. Even if he wasn't as flashy as he was last year, Michigan doesn't win the college football playoff without Mason Graham and Will Johnson as well. But Mason Graham, in my opinion, made more of an impact during that run.
Okay, so where is Grant on your board? If you said it, I didn't hear. Is he in the top 32?
Grant is 28th on my big board. So he's in the top 32, but he is on the top of the list of guys 28 through 39 who you could interchange genuinely as this process goes on.
Got it. So this was pretty good. Like, first of all, we got through it really fast, so that was impressive. But I'm beginning to see some, let's say, trends. So it's really cool to see Darius Alexander up that high, because that seems to be where he's going in nearly every mock draft that we do. So it's good to see that. I'm going to say consensus has him like top 50, top 60.
Right around that. Same thing with me. He's right in there for me as well.
Yeah. So So this has been pretty good. So we don't have too much more left, but Josh, before we go, do you want to tell everybody kind of who you are and how they can find you?
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at juice_T23. Excuse me. After this podcast goes up, we'll be dropping the list of guys you saw on this video on a thread on Twitter. And then you guys will get my top 100 big board, all the guys we've went through over, and plus about 50 other prospects that fit on my big board right now. Still got about 100 players left to go to grade. I got a bunch of guys that I've already graded, haven't put on the board yet, but you guys will get full access to that, full transparency. So when I post stuff on Twitter, give my opinion, you have something to look on to see what I'm backing and based off of. So all of that's coming to you guys in the near future. We're back here next Monday as well. Hopefully Jake's back next Monday, if not the Monday after that. So you're going to get all three of us back again. And yeah, make sure to subscribe to all the NFL Draft Fanatic links on YouTube and Twitter. They are killing the game right now, especially with the 7-round mock drafts, the mock drafts they do every Monday, giving you guys rankings every day of the week. You can't find better draft content here than the NFL Draft Fanatic. So make sure you share all our socials, keep up with us, because we're doing this throughout the whole draft process and then in the next year's draft process. So it's 365 around here.
Yeah. So I want to echo what Josh said. So we have daily draft content. This is the second podcast we did today. We have 2 more tomorrow, 2 more Wednesday, 2 more Thursday, 32-team mock draft every Friday. So if you have the chance to participate in one of the Friday events, it's a really good way to meet multiple draft professors as well as multiple people that are in the chat. So, Andy, thank you for stopping by. I know that you and I have messaged several times. Bill, I see you more than I see my own kids. That's a compliment, by the way. You can catch Drew. So, I do have to preview tomorrow night. So tomorrow night is Hog Molly night. So we have 2 offensive line podcasts back to back. So Randall is going to be leading up offensive linemen in the top 50.
That's going to be.
And then Drew and Parker are going to finish that out with all offensive linemen. They have a round 5 or better grade up. So
yeah.
If your team needs offensive line, like if you are a Patriots fan, there is 3 hours of must-see podcasts tomorrow, right? And the Patriots aren't the only team that needs offensive linemen. I'm just saying they need 4 of them. But definitely check out every day. More podcast content is coming your way, and we're going to be spinning it at you different ways. So one of my favorite shows this week is actually going to be Wednesday at 7. EJ and Will are going to be doing 32 defenders for 32 teams. So they're probably going to be talking about nearly every player that Josh covered today, but they're going to say they like this defender to this defensive coordinator. So they're like, does Jihad Campbell get matched up with Mike McDonald?
Right.
Or does he maybe get connected to the Ravens, or maybe does he get connected to a different defensive coordinator? So what will Will and EJ decide, and will they agree? So that should be, I'm really looking forward to that Wednesday one, because when we start trying to marry a player up with a scheme, I think that's the skill of the draft professors.
Right.
So from that standpoint, on behalf of the 42 podcasters at the Draft Professor, for Josh, for me, for everybody, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy your Monday night, and we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.